Welcome to the Short Funk Podcast. I'm Tom Barbalet. Today, 2000. For Noble 8, 2000 was an interesting period because I grabbed the source code and decided I was going to rewrite the Noble 8 simulation to look a lot like what was coming out at the time as early open source. The term open source postdates the creation of the Nervana project, and really by 2000 it was starting to get a degree of definition that meant that I could move this source code, which had always been online and always been freely accessible, into something that could sit under an open source license and be genuinely open source. One of the projects that I worked with, one of the startups that I worked with through this period of time was called Pocket Bytes. This was fundamentally an extension of the existing Tamagotchi device. The founder of Pocket Bytes had actually got the licensing rights from this, and he wanted to create the next generation of Tamagotchi, which he called an internet pocket toy. He'd been working with a fellow part-time. They hadn't really developed anything. They had a kind of brick emulator that they were using, which wasn't particularly useful. And he came to me with a background that from the Rushkov article, I'd been invited to speak at a number of conferences, and I was relatively well known in a relatively short period of time. And the first thing that I did was set up a simulation in order to simulate what these creatures, what these entities would look like in individual battles and in, multiple participant battles, to see if they could be simulated to survive up until a period of time, but also to explore the notion that if they had a battle and one of them won, then it would get to take an item from the other one. And there was this whole notion of item exchange and body part exchange and a variety of different shifts which enabled people, when they played with these toys, to pick up various components. By going to prototyping and simulation, I ran 1,000 to 10,000 cycle simulations to try and get these toys to work as I wanted them to work. And I worked for a period of about 6 months up until the stage where we were starting to do machining on the initial prototype. I had a Palm version, I had a Windows version, I had a Mac OS version, which meant that people could actually play the game on their device while we were in, venture capital funding meetings, angel investor meetings, this kind of stuff. So this for me was a really exciting project. Unfortunately, through all the toings and the froings, the creator or the CEO, for want of a better term, of the startup found a venture capital firm that decided to make him an offer he couldn't refuse, and I was left with a lot of the original intellectual property. Pocket Bytes closed up around June, July of 2000, and this is really where things started to take a turn to the worst. My Australian sponsor was interested in extracting money. I'd spent a long period of time with Apple founder Steve Wozniak, and my Australian sponsor thought Wozniak would be an easy target for this. I then had to distance myself from the Australian sponsor. He cut off funding. Wozniak's people created a kind of extended series of hoops to jump through associated with getting a visa for one of their ventures. And by the end of 2000, I had met my girlfriend at the time, who went on to become my fiancée and my wife, but there was just really no stability in the Bay Area. And without the money from my sponsor coming in, I was basically eroding what little savings I had remaining, which had added to since I had mono, but still probably allowed me for only 2 or 3 additional months in the US before I had to generate a very fast escape route in 2001. Tom Barbalet in San Jose, signing out.